The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is proudly presented by Owens Farms Piedmontese.
Let me share a local Spokane secret that everyone needs to know about. Owens Farms Piedmontese beef. Trust me when I say this. You cannot beat this meat. It's tender. It's flavorful. It's some of the best beef you'll ever put into your mouth, period. And to top it off, when you eat it, you can say goodbye to the meat hangovers. That's because Piedmontese beef is lean and has much less cholesterol than your typical supermarket beef. It's a new year. It's time to start living your life with no regrets. Go to ofp.farm to reserve your half or whole order of premium Piedmontese beef today. There's only a limited amount of Owens Farms Piedmontese beef available, so make sure you don't miss out. Go to ofp.farm today. The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is produced independently and locally in Spokane, Washington by Spokast Studios. Our city, our stories. Visit www.spokast.com to learn more about how you can start your very own podcast today. Thank you to Jinx Universe and Position Music for letting The Perimeter use the song Let's Do It Again from Jinx's album, Make It Look Good.
The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is brought to you in sponsorship with Delicious Hamburgers. Did you know Delicious Hamburgers and Fries are the freshest in Spokane? Their hamburgers are never frozen, and that's because it tastes better. There's not even a freezer in the restaurant. Their fries are always made to order and never sit under a heat lamp. Its differences like this you can truly taste. Next time you're craving the freshest hamburgers and fries, head to the corner of Augusta and Division and ask for the Perimeter Combo. A triple delicious hamburger with grilled onions, pickles, and special sauce. It also comes with fries and your choice of a milkshake. Delicious. Taste the difference.
Let me introduce you to the Spokane Workers Co-op, a locally based worker-owned holding company whose mission it is to increase access to living wages, workplace democracy, and autonomy, and to create the sort of lifelong career trajectories that are increasingly uncommon for the majority of people in America. The worker owners of SWC, regardless of which business they work, are equal co-owners of the entire holding company, providing them not just direct ownership of the fruits of their own labor, but ownership in a diversified and resilient portfolio of businesses dedicated to serving Spokane and the Inland Northwest. SWC also buys traditional businesses. SWC buys traditional businesses like LLCs, partnerships, and sole proprietorships, for example, from owners who are ready to retire and who want to make sure the employees who help them build their business are taken care of after the owner leaves. Learn more at www.spokane.coop. And if you're an owner interested in talking about selling, email SWC at team@spokane.coop. That is team@spokane.coop.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Turn up the 10. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 9 of The Perimeter, sponsored by Owens Farms Piedmontese. I got Brennan, the producer, with me. I'm going to recap a great weekend for Gonzaga basketball down in the Bay. Tough weekend. I kind of predicted that, I think, on the last episode, that it's two tough places to play. But San Francisco with a 2-point win, and then Santa Clara with, I believe, a 5-point win. Yeah, 5-point win. Game was really close. Both games were really close. But how'd you feel about the games real quick?
Well, I mean, after talking to you so much about how much you love watching close Gonzaga games, it was fun basketball to watch.
Yeah.
Like it was, I mean, it's what you want when you watch basketball. You want a close game. Like in the first game against San Francisco, I mean, they only led once in the game before they won.
Yeah.
And it was just exciting in Santa Clara, but like obviously in the back of my mind, I'm thinking because they got off to really slow starts. And that was concerning, but you know, they got through it, and it was a lot of fun basketball to watch.
No, I mean, as far as like a fan's perspective, and then obviously broadcaster's perspective, it's more fun to call these type of games. I think they have more value later in the season when you get into January and February and March, because then you can kind of look back at the making plays with some anxiety. So yeah, I mean the San Francisco game for whatever reason, the last 5 or 6 years, it's been a really tough place for us to play. Now, if you're listening, everybody's like, well, look at the record. What I mean by tough place to play is the games are usually under the spread, quote unquote. And we're not a gambling podcast, but the games are closer than what Vegas and the general public usually would prescribe them to be beforehand. So I was not surprised watching the game, of how close it was and how much we've struggled early. For some reason, Todd Golden, he's at Florida now, but that staff does a really good job of scouting us for some reason down there, and they usually take away kind of what our main guys do. Obviously, Drew Timme played not so great. I thought it was a great scout on him. He looked a little bit tired as well, so maybe there was an illness that we didn't hear about or something like that. But he just looked, a step slow. But I think a lot of it had to do with the defense, especially in the first half. That big kid, I can't even pronounce his last name, Muskowski or something like that, big Polish kid off the bench, who did a good job on him. But what they were doing is every time he caught, they were kind of pre-rotated to his spins and just stayed high and then would dig down with an opposite guard or, the nearest defender and make it really difficult on him. Obviously, those are shots that he normally makes. So then the counter to my argument's like, well, a lot of times other teams try to do that and he still makes it. But I thought they did an excellent job of standing him up early, not letting him get it to the block. And if he did get his catch, there was always, a dig down or there was somebody in help. And then they kind of, like I said, they pre-rotated on his early catch when he likes to go to spin jump hook. They were already there on his left shoulder. Obviously, he can make a left hand, right shoulder jump hook, but they were sitting on his left shoulder more and making it really difficult for him. So, obviously, like I said, that place is tough to play. They pack it out. Obviously, it was a desperate team. They're 0-2 in conference, and it was weird because San Francisco, going into that game, we talked about in the last episode, just had a big win against number 25 ranked, Arizona State won by like 30. So it was like, this team is, poised to maybe finish in the top 4 in the WCC. And, when you finish in the top 4, you try to get on the opposite side of Gonzaga in the tournament. I mean, that's really what teams kind of play for. I know they'll sit there and say, we're trying to win a WCC championship, but in the back of their mind, it's like, let's get on the opposite side. And if we can at least get to the championship night with Gonzaga, and then obviously anything can happen. But it was a fantastic game. They really dominated the glass, which I was really surprised of. -19 for Gonzaga on the boards, which rarely happens in general, but rarely happens against a WCC team. So they really pounded the glass offensively as well. They had 13 offensive rebounds. They killed us on second chance points. At one point, it was like 16-0 on second chance points in the first half. It was one of those situations where we just could not box out or the ball wasn't bouncing our way. But, again, down 10 at half, what I've liked about this team in the last month and a half is there hasn't been a panic switch. Early in the season when we got down 10 against Texas and got down 10 against Purdue, you could tell there was some anxiety and you could tell that it was hero ball and we're trying to make it all back at once. It wasn't, there was no, hey, let's stick to the plan. Let's saw wood. Let's go on a 4-0 run, 6-0 run, get right back in the game. So that's the difference now with the team from 6 weeks ago, which is obviously a good sign. That means, you're trusting the process. The guys are trusting the game plan. They're understanding that teams go on runs, especially on the road. You're going to have role players play better than they do on the road. So, again, it's not Monday morning quarterback or me trying to pat myself on the back, but I was not surprised with the score line early in the basketball game. Now, when it got tighter down the stretch, I was surprised that San Francisco played that well for that longest stretch of a game, if that makes sense. Usually teams like that will play well for about 30 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes, the last half of the second half, you kind of take control, and then you can kind of put them away. So hats off to San Francisco for staying in that ball game. And frankly, if you're being like a neutral party watching the game, they probably should have won the game. I mean, they made so many mistakes down the stretch. I think they burned their last time out with like 3 minutes to go. So 0 timeouts, which makes it difficult, especially when you're trying to hold on to a lead. There was silly turnovers by their off guard Roberts. And then Napier had a couple, his last name's Napier, right? Shabazz.
Oh,
okay. Shabazz. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was thinking, anyway, college basketball. Yeah. Anyway, so Seattle kid too, he's a good player. Anyway, it was just I felt bad for them in the sense that not in a pity way, but just like, man, this team has been begging for high quality win. They always play us tough down there. We know it. I don't think that, like I said, the outside public does, but you're almost like, man, kind of nice if they just dumbed their way into one. You know what I mean? Like just out of pity, you're just like, oh man, you guys scout us probably the best when we play you there. You have good players. You run a good system. Todd Golden, before he left, and Kyle Smith, who's now at Washington State, installed like a analytic driven system that's fun up and down. They play with skill, good college basketball, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, Rasheer Bolton really came through for Gonzaga. I think it was his best game that he's had this season. 21 points, 8 of 12, 5 of 7 from downtown. Obviously, the huge putback late and one. Again, it was another San Francisco like boneheaded mistake. You have to box out on the weak side there, and you let the shortest guy on the floor tip it in to get to seal the victory. And then again, San Francisco goes down with no timeouts, and they don't even get a shot off. They had like 6 seconds. That's when, obviously you want a timeout, but like if you're a head coach, like that's, you scream from the sideline, your play, and we got to run into this and get going right away. And that should be like something fairly simple to get a shot off, or like at least not punt it. Like they basically did, is just fumble it away and didn't get anything going towards the rim at all. No foul pressure. You want to try to flatten the defense. Like you just, in that situation, you just attack. If they, obviously come down and help, then you kick out for a wide open three, but you make it to where, players are taught don't foul in that situation. So you make it really difficult, and you put the onus on the officials. So, again, I kind of felt bad for San Francisco. A team that was 0-2 in conference going into that, and like we said, and then is now 0-3, just buried in conference. Good team so far, 11-7 this year, but just did not make the right plays. But again, Rasheer Bolton was fantastic, 21 points. That tip and made some big threes when we were down 4 or 5 late in that basketball game. We get back into it, and then Julian Strother had a good game, 7 of 14. Let's say 16 points. Yeah, 16 points. Drew Timmy, worst game of his probably Gonzaga career, 3 of 16, 11 points. Anton played well, 6 of 9, 2 of 4 from downtown for 14 points. So, a balanced attack. Nolan Hickman added 8. Balanced attack with your starters, and then not much off the bench. Off the bench, it was 3 points from Ben Gregg. Hunter Silas only had 2, and then Malachi had 2 on just 2 free throw makes. So,
yeah, I was going to ask you about the bench. Like in the 2 games that we've played so far, like, or on the road, 7 points off the bench. Like,
yeah,
is that concerning? Like,
no, I mean, it's something you definitely have to, perk your eyebrows a little bit, because you need, balanced scoring. You want a punch off the bench. The guy that comes to mind is obviously Malachi Smith. We've talked about him at length in previous episodes. Averaged 21 in Chattanooga. Came to this program for bigger opportunities, basketball wise, and then obviously like player profile wise, playing in bigger games, gets better competition, blah, blah, blah. He wants to play at the next level, in which I think he has an opportunity to. But He's got to get it going offensively, obviously. I mean, it's tough. I get it. I've come off the bench in numerous phases in my basketball life. It's not the easiest thing to do because sometimes the game just doesn't flow your way. Or when you come into the game, even though you're a quote unquote scorer, sometimes the flow is just not for that. Sometimes it's, guy got in a foul trouble, or you can't shoot on the first side. You first time touch it, and you might not touch it 3 times in a row, and then all of a sudden your minutes are up, and you're out, and it looks like you played bad. You really didn't, but also you're asked to come in and be a spark plug. So, it is concerning, to be frank. But is it correctable? Yes, obviously. But again, Ben Gregg's got to shoot the ball better. He was 1 for 4 in that San Francisco game, 2 of 7 in the Santa Clara game. So yeah, I mean, that's 3 for 11 on the weekend, and he's getting pretty good looks. It's kind of weird when teams scout and guard him, they play him they're like 4 or 5 feet off him. And I'm like, he's kind of a 3-point shooter. That's kind of what he does. But yeah, I mean, they're kind of right. He's 1 for 4 in the San Francisco game from downtown, and then 0 for 2 in the Santa Clara game. So, I mean, I guess they know more than I do, but it's, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they
for sure.
Kind of sag off, and they play like 5-6 feet in the paint. And
they just want him to take that shot.
Yeah. And I'm always like, I think that's kind of like what he is a face up 4. That's not a bad thing, but he's kind of a face up 4. But they still play him that way. So I think you just got to get more confident and step up and knock those type of shots down. And but yeah, you're exactly right. I didn't even think of that. Thanks for that, bringing that forward. Is 7 points in each game from the bench this weekend, and we've talked about it at length, especially the San Francisco game. We'll get in the Santa Clara game here in a second, but there's going to be a game where Drew doesn't play well, and who steps up. And Rasheer Bolton did an excellent job of that. Obviously, Julian Strother, I just mentioned his numbers as well. I thought Nolan was fine, 4-7, took care of the basketball. You know what I'm saying? So that was a big time positive to see, because you can keep going to the well, but it, eventually, knock on wood, but it might go dry, right?
Right.
And it's just natural. And like I said, the game plan on Drew was really good, and he missed bunnies that he normally makes, but I thought they made it difficult for him. And so, I always talk about the positives of games, or like the value of playing closer games when everybody thinks you should win by 35 and is mad if you don't, but then mad if you do, because they're like, oh, the games are boring. Why are we in this conference? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, well, what do you want? But I thought having that type of game where a perimeter player had to step up and make big time shots, a la Rasheer Bolton, is just such a positive for us down the stretch. And then going into this Santa Clara game, really good basketball team. I think they were 13-4 going into that game. Herb Sidnick has won wherever he's been: Miami, Ohio, Arizona State, NC State. He's been everywhere. Has gotten teams to the NCAA tournament, knows how to win, very good coach. There is belief in that at that university compared to some of the other West Coast Conference schools, that they want basketball to be successful. I know that sounds funny, but like a lot of athletic departments, they care, but they don't, if that makes sense. They care about more of just the overall balance of all the athletics, which is how it's quote unquote supposed to be, but there's no football. So you think, you know what I'm saying? That's my point, is like, you think basketball will be the one they kind of focus on, but some just look at it as a whole entity, which is fine. But my point is, like, Santa Clara wants to get back to being, kind of a NIT, NCAA tournament type team every single year. They believe, obviously, the school is beautiful. The area is, Walnut Creek and the Bay and the area is awesome. It's a great place to be. Obviously, anybody that's been to California understands that and lived in that area. It's one of my favorite trips to go on. It's cool vibe. Usually the weather is obviously great. It's not LA, so it's not some of the riffraff that you deal with traffic wise and all that. It just feels more normal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I have a friend that lives in Walnut Creek, and it's just a beautiful,
it's just,
it's an amazing place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just it's so nice. It's obviously a affluent area, but it doesn't feel too bad, as too ritzy or whatever, pompous, but then there's that little element of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's yeah. And so my point is like, for recruiting, it's, they feel like they have a better position to recruit higher level guys. The area is better, the weather's better. I'm sure the opposite sex of is more. There's more of them at that university than the other ones. If you get what I'm saying.
I mean, that's a selling point when you go to a college for kids, right? For especially basketball players.
It is. I mean, let's just be honest. Like if you're going to a recruiting visit to, let's say, Arizona at Tucson or Arizona State compared to Pullman, I mean, it's not like a knock on anybody that goes to those schools. It's just a natural. Why do you think all like the South teams in football win? It kind of helps when it's 80 degrees and there's 14,000 girls going to a football game and you're going to be on the field. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So so anyway, my point is Santa Clara, we got off topic a little bit.
Right.
Santa Clara wants to win and they believe Herb Sendek can bring that to him. And I firmly believe he's got the program going in the right direction. Again, start of that game, very slow for Gonzaga. I wasn't surprised. Again, when I'm on this show, I know I talk about myself a lot. It's it is my show and it's the perimeter.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you if I'm fucking wrong. I always will, or if I was off. I was not surprised that Santa Clara is up 12 early in the game. Crowd is live there. They call it the Rough Rider Nation or whatever, and their students. It's probably the only game they go to every year, like in mass. They're a little bit borderline vulgar and like old school taunting, which I think is fine. I have nothing against that. I think it's more fun when they kind of make fun of you a little bit in the right way, but it's not like just generic cheers. You know what I'm saying? Like they're into the game. The fans are kind of the same way. They're tired of losing to Gonzaga. They're tired of being that close. So when they go up 20-8 and are rolling, the reason why I'm not surprised is your role players and everybody else is going to play extremely, excited. And I thought Coach Few did a good job of just remaining calm, understanding that that's kind of going to happen. Eventually we'll get stops. Eventually, they'll miss some of the shots. I really liked the lefty kid from, I think he was at Wisconsin or Illinois, played at Illinois, then transferred from Wisconsin. Podzmeski, the lefty kid, the lefty redhead kid, was good. 7 of 14 had 17 points, but he was extremely efficient early in that basketball game. I think started 4 of 4. It's kind of had a different game. I like lefties. I think lefties are fun to watch. It's hard to guard. I used to hate playing against lefties because it's just everything's different.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just naturally your brain's like, oh man, I actually got to be on this side. Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And then like the way they shoot, it just everything looks different. It's cool. He was fantastic. Looks like like a chance to be a professional down the road at some level, very highly skilled, got to the rim, turned the corner. The Justice kid, been there forever, is fantastic. 4-9 from downtown, 9-17 overall. I've always liked his game. He's got a poor man's YMCA game, kind of a bigger body, slow, can't jump. Probably would say the same thing about himself, and it's not a knock. It just looks like he could be playing in a rec league somewhere, but shoots the snot out of it. But again, I wasn't surprised how they came into that game, just guns ablazing, obviously with a high energy. Running the floor, blah, blah, blah. But again, the beauty of this season is watching a team like Gonzaga, which we knew had some new faces on the perimeter as far as minutes played, new faces. Obviously, they were in the program last year, but like the roles were completely different. There was no freak out in that. You know what I'm saying? And that is a true sign of a team growing. Obviously, that's a sign of great coaching and game plan management, but also it's, it shows that these guys are starting to understand, teams are going to make runs. Let's trust the game plan. Obviously it has something to do with leadership. I'm sure Drew and Rashir, are in those huddles and just calming everybody down, but I never saw any wild freakouts or, let's home run play now. And, that is a great sign for down the road, whether it be February, March, and then including next year, whatever the team looks like next year. Obviously, I say that with the transfer portal because you never really know. It's as crazy as it sounds, but you really don't. So I was impressed with that again. Now, on the flip side, it's easy to say, well, why are they starting so slow? Fair argument. No fucking clue. I mean, I have no idea what remedies that. You don't change your starting lineup. I think that's too. You only do like starting lineup changes if that happens, and you fucking lose like a couple in a row, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think a new starting lineup makes sense. But then also like there needs to be a little bit more. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Like want to at the start of games, or like pizzazz, or adrenaline, or cock diesel, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of lacking.
Yeah.
And that's scary in the sense of, obviously when you play in the WCC tournament and then West Coast Conference tournament, the NCAA tournament, you're done.
It's over.
It's over. So that's what is concerning when you play devil's advocate, when I just talked about, well, it's nice that they can handle a run and come back. Well, actually probably be better if you guys started off a little bit better, so you wouldn't even have this situation of, hey, we're growing and we're, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that can be concerning. But again, I thought Drew did a good job on a really slow start. I think he was a 1 for 6 to start, and looked tired again. Like early, I was like, shit, he looks tired, man. Like, you know what I mean?
I made a joke that like Drew Timmy looked old out there. He looked like he was struggling. He definitely in the San Francisco game, but in the Santa Clara game too. I mean, he had 20 points. Yeah, but you could just tell he just looked sweaty, and he just looked
tired.
He's like an old man.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, and it was concerning because it's like 2 games in a row, and you're like, well, is he sick? Or is there like a nagging injury, like a groin problem or hamstring, where like it doesn't show up, but it labors you, you know what I mean? But you don't want to be like, oh, I can't play. And it's like, well, actually, you're in the back half of your last year, like he's probably going to lay some, that's what was going through my mind. So, well, what's wrong with him physically, or is there emotional problem that he's going through and he's just not there mentally? But he came back and ended up being 7 of 15. So 1 for 6. So he went 9 for 6 the rest of the game. No.
Sorry.
1 for 6 that he finished. Hold on. 7 to 15, so he went 6 for 9.
6 for 9. Yes,
okay,
there we go.
I'm sorry,
bad math.
Yeah, I'm shitty at math. Anyway,
me too.
Kudos to him for finding the scoring touch. Julian Strother, another great weekend. I mean, he went 15 points. And he had 18 this game, 6 of 10, 2 or 3 from downtown. Again, man, I just. This is me not trying to start anything, but I just always feel like he gets the short end of the stick on field goal attempts. Just only 10. Sometimes there's some games where he gets like 5 to 8, and I'm just like, man, I don't know how you do it, dude. Like, but good for you for being smart enough to not be an asshole and just go rip some up. But I'd have been an asshole and just rip some up, man. Fuck it.
Well, in both those games, like that's what it. I mean, obviously Drew played a lot better in the Santa Clara game, but like they still needed the shots from Nolan.
Yeah.
And
no, you're exactly right. Like Drew played great, but it wasn't dominant Drew, and it wasn't, everything's going through him type of deal. So I think Rasheer kind of regressed back. Obviously fantastic game against San Francisco. It goes 4-13, 1 of 4, 9 points. But I think Nolan, 8 for 9, 4 or 5 from downtown, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. How many turnovers? Only 1 turnover. So obviously 2 to 1. You want a little bit more assists. Probably his best game this season overall. Big time shots down the stretch that drive, crossover. We got the Stewart kid on skates, knocks down a 3, was kind of the dagger in the game. Made some big time kick out 3s as well. Had a nice right to left crossover with the right hand finish on the left side in the first half that kind of got him going. I think he's been great all season, to be honest, with an exception of a couple games. But if you look at his numbers compared to Nemhard's last year, like they're really close. And that's what people don't want to admit. Now, is he as good as Andrew? No, not right now. Can he be? Yes. That's not what I'm saying. But like, if you're just going like, compare and contrast on a sheet of paper, you're like, well, he's not too far from where Andrew Nemhard was, and Andrew signed the largest guaranteed deal of any second round pick in the history of the NBA. So he had a great career, and he, blah, 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 found a home in the NBA, and he's probably going to be a backup point guard. And that's not a knock. That's a really good job in the NBA, a backup point guard for 10 plus years. Like he has that ability where he can come in, make decisions, play 15, 20 minutes a night. Your body's going to last forever. They'll hand you $8 million a year plus, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, please.
yeah, exactly. So like he's going to be fine. But again, like I said, if you go with compare and contrast numbers, it's like, well, he's not too far off. And Andrew was fantastic for us last year. Andrew played like 38 minutes a night last year. But again, I thought it was fun to watch. Obviously, seeing a team have to make plays down the stretch against a hostile crowd, seeing guys like Nolan make big time shots instead of Drew, and that's not a knock on anybody. It's just now that goes in his mental piggy bank that he's made those type of shots before, and it also makes it tougher for teams to defend down the stretch if they're worried about other guys being able to make those type of shots. Rasheer did it obviously in the game before, and then Nolan. So Anton played through foul trouble, had 4 personal fouls. I think he had 3 in the first half, and Fewey is not a big fan of playing guys. Even when they get 2, he kind of likes to. That's why he has 3 bigs, and he plays 3 bigs, and you can kind of protect yourself from foul trouble. Anton's played well all season, but only 7 points in 19 minutes. Ben Gregg, again, coming off the bench, played 23 minutes. Got a great opportunity. Didn't really take it, in my opinion. 2 of 7, 0 of 2 from downtown. Did a good job on the glass, 8 rebounds, 5 points. And then you mentioned the 7 points total. Hunter Silas only played 6 minutes, 1 for 3, 2 points. And then Malachi played 8 minutes, 0 for 2, 0 for 1 from downtown. 1 rebound. So that is concerning. I mean, like I said in the start, talking about San Francisco and Santa Clara, role players play better at home. And if you look at Santa Clara's, they have the Holt kid come off the bench, goes 4 for 4 in 14 minutes, gives them 8 points. He probably hasn't done that all season. You know what I'm saying? Or hasn't done it in a big atmosphere and big game like that. Hopefully those guys could start to turn the corner and play better. A lot of times though, and how do I phrase this the right way? When you're bringing guys off the bench, you're not always looking at the numbers they produce. And now I just did, but I'm talking from a coach's perspective, did the flow of the game change? Yes or no? Was the energy better? Yes or no? Did they do their assignments on the glass? Sometimes, the ball just doesn't fall your way, but did your guy get the rebound? No. You know what I'm saying? So like sometimes when you watch a role player come off the bench and they play their 5 to 6 minutes, whatever it is, their short stint, did they turn it over? No. Check. Good job. You know what I mean? But then you look at their box line and it might be 2 rebounds, 0 for 1. Yeah. 2 assists. You'd be like, well, that guy played shitty. And you're actually probably not. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have to understand and realize that.
It's apparent in the stats too, because Malachi played 17 minutes against San Francisco, had 2 points from free throws, and then in the next game played 8 minutes. Yeah. And 0 points. Yep. So obviously they're, that holds true. Yeah. Right. But there has to be like a spark off the bench. I feel like
no, you're right.
One of these guys like Hunter or Malachi are gonna have to, come in and be that guy eventually.
Yeah, no, I think Malachi again. just because he's more experienced than what he was, viewed as last year, and his scoring, I think he needs to be like 8 to 12 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the systems are different. So then sometimes if I'm thinking of myself, I came off the bench my freshman year and averaged 11. So it's possible. And I did it in 19 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously we played a lot of different style than we do now, but also it's like, you kind of have to come in and just be like, you have to be super confident in yourself. You have to be super aggressive. Few like score. So I used to always have it in my mind that if I didn't score, I was going to come out. So it was kind of like a fear-based thing, not in a bad way, but like, shit, if I keep scoring, I'll stay in the fucking game.
Yeah.
So I think Malachi kind of has to, it doesn't mean you force, but it also means like you got to kind of have like a fuck it attitude and let it rip. Because that's the only way you're going to break out of a quote unquote slump anyway. You can't play scared. It's impossible to play scared at any sport. It's possible to go through life like that. You know what I'm saying? It's a true thing in basketball. So yeah, I think overall, great weekend. Obviously the 2 wins, that goes without saying, but I think getting those wins in hostile environments without Drew playing fantastically is the added bonus on this weekend as well, because it shows that, our perimeter players have the ability. They feel good about themselves. Rasheer in the first game and then Nolan in the second game against Santa Clara. So all in all, obviously Julian played fantastic and steady throughout both of those games. But I think it's like just a great aspect for our team going into, the second half of the season and going into conference games that we knew. And Fewy has said it numerous times on broadcasts and with interviews. He's like, we could lose some West Coast Conference games this year. And he's trying to like signal to everybody. He's like, I love my team. I love my guys, but they're going to be closer this year. So I'm like, fuck yeah, it's awesome. I don't have to call a 35-point blowout every single time. It's like boring. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's more fun to watch. But again, great job by our guys of getting a true road, a business trip, we used to call them. So, a double on the road and going into a huge game with BYU on this Thursday. It's going to be a war. The place is hard to play. Provo, we've been successful there recently. This team has done a good job of kind of rebounding. They were 5-5 to start the season, and then I think they rattled 7 or 8 in a row off. Last time I looked, they were 12-5, so obviously at least 7. 3-1 in conference, lost to LMU, which is always a weird matchup for a lot of teams. But they're viewing this game obviously as if we beat Gonzaga, we're tied for first. With St. Mary's as well with 3 wins and top of the league. And this is the last year they'll be in the conference. They're obviously highly written about or publicized move to the Big 12, which is going to be interesting, more of a football move, but it's going to be interesting for them basketball wise. But yeah, it's always fun to play that game. The last time they beat us, 3 years ago, I think. Yeah, Huddy and I called that game. It was right before COVID.
It was
that season before COVID or whatever.
It was February 22nd, 2020. We lost down in Provo.
Yeah, senior night,
78-91.
Yeah, it was their senior night. They stormed the court, which was funny. Yeah, it was interesting. They do a great job. I must be completely honest. Their presentation and the way they get those students involved is the best in the conference. It's not even close either. Like
really?
Their games are, it's like going to an NBA game, but not too much. But they do all the promotions. They have an MC. They do all the like games and stuff, and everybody's into it. And then that student section is fucking huge. And that student section is 1,000% sober, and they're more into the games than any other student section. So they're doing something right down there with getting their students involved. And that's not making light, of their faith, but it's like they're into the games. Yeah. Good for them. You know what I'm saying? And they like have a DJ. They do all the stuff. You know what I'm saying? So like I'm like, you guys are understanding the younger generation. You get them hyped for the game. Good for you. Like, so the presentation. So it's basically what I'm saying. It's a fun place to play. Yeah. It's a fun place to go to a game. there's an atmosphere of dislike in there. Our staff has done a good job of keeping that program at bay. Ever since they came to the conference, everybody's going to say that it was the end for Gonzaga and blah, blah, blah. And they haven't won a league title. So that's always fun to talk about. It'll be an interesting battle. Mark Pope's a good coach. It's going to be fun because it's kind of playing for something. They've obviously, like I said, never won the league. But I don't think they've even been to a championship game at the West Coast Conference tournament. Look that up.
Yeah, I will.
That's crazy. If you really think about it, they didn't even get to I don't think they've been in a championship game. I could be wrong.
I'm not sure.
That's what I'm saying. I always feel like we've beaten them in the semis or they've lost to St. Mary's in the semis. But the tournament's been there for 10 years. They've probably been in the league, 8 years or something like that?
Yeah, they've been in it since 2011.
So more 10 years. So they've been there the whole time the tournament's there. I'm probably wrong.
You're wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, we've played. So Gonzaga's beat BYU in the WC tournament in
the final.
This is the finals. This is the finals of the WCC men's basketball tournament. 2014, 2015.
Oh, I was way off.
2018, and then 2021. And we've won all those.
Okay. I don't know why I thought of that stat. Anyway,
and maybe because we
beat them.
we beat them. Like the closest one.
I thought, I swear I would have bet a lot of money that I was right. But yeah, no, it's God bless the internet.
The closest one was a 9-point. When Gonzaga beat them by 9 points. 9 points like in 2014. So I mean, it's been a rivalry, like a really good rivalry, even though like the stats, it's Gonzaga has 22 wins to 7 losses. But I remember going to the very first one at the Kennel, and it was just a very much a vibe, because we want to beat them. I always call it it's the Catholics versus the Mormons.
It is. Yeah, no, it's one of those. Yeah, like somebody make T-shirts and they'd probably sell them. You know what I mean? But it's it's interesting to when you get into the whole dynamics of that stuff, and I don't really give a shit, to be honest. And that's 100% truth. But it's funny when you kind of creep into that stuff, and I always like, nope, I'm not even going to discuss it. You know what I mean? So, but they do a good job down there. Like I said, it's not obviously a pro atmosphere, but it's as close as you can get, and they get hyped in there, and they get their students involved. It's a tough place to play. Like I said, we lost there a couple of years ago. They've had some really good balanced teams. Mark Pope is a great coach. It's going to be a fun atmosphere. Then Saturday we got Portland, which is going to be an interesting game. Started the season off really good in that PK 80. I think it was gave Michigan State a scare, or whomever they played in that deal. No, it was Duke or whoever.
It was on UNC.
UNC, yes.
Yeah,
I was way off. Well, it was close.
Well, it was UNC, and so
they played Michigan State too, and
they played Michigan State too. Yeah, yes. They lost by 1 point to Michigan State, and they lost by like 7 points.
Yeah, but it was closer than 7. Yeah. There was a lot of excitement going, or after that, with Shantae Liggins led group, and how they're playing and style of play and all that. But they've kind of faltered and gone 8 and 10 since, or they are 8 and 10. Interesting game, always playing Portland. Mainly because of Shantae Liggins. There's a weird dynamic with the Eastern. When he was at Eastern, there was always a rumbling that, how do I say this the right way? That he thought we were always not ducking them, but we should play them because they're Eastern, and like, why wouldn't you? And then so we played them that one year, and they did the analytic driven coach, good coach. Let me say that first and foremost. He's a rising coach, young coach, got an opportunity probably to move on from Portland. if he's, continues to get the program going in the right direction. But he was doing like the analytic at the end of half, and he was fouling. Remember when Brandon Clark wasn't a good free throw shooter?
Mm-hmm.
And he had one of his guys like grab Brandon when he was going up for a layup. So there's always this, we don't really like your style of play type of deal. And it all started with that.
Yeah.
So every time we play them, it gets kind of chippy for some reason. And it's not a knock on him or Portland, but there is some just, I don't think the fans know. My point is like there is a little bit of chippiness between these two staffs. That people might not see with a clear lens right away. But if you kind of think back, you're like, oh, and then he's kind of I don't know, how do I say this? He's very animated on the sideline, and that rubs people the wrong way. I don't have a problem with it. I think he's coaching his ass. He's trying to coach his ass off, but it pisses some people off. And so there is a little bit of friction of these two programs. So I always like the Portland game, even though the spread's usually like fucking 30, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm always like, oh, this might get spicy.
But that's all of the games with Gonzaga, right? Like, everybody wants to beat Gonzaga.
Yeah, but like when you're like grabbing a potential lottery pick when he's going up for a layup in the first half.
Yeah.
Just because of an analytic deal, you're going to piss like,
I
do you
think that also happened against Drew? Like
probably.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just playing pure analytics, but also like, I remember being on the broadcast and I was normally I don't like hammer other coaches, you know what I'm saying? There's no reason to, but it was terrible. It's like, this is not hoops, like, what are you doing? Like, it was terrible. And Brandon Clark was like one of the best players in the country. And even if he wasn't, it was one of these like full wrap. Yes. On your shoulders when you're loading and going up, that's how you get hurt.
Yeah.
Period, plain and simple. I don't care if you're averaging 1 point a game. You don't do that to somebody. You go across their arms, foul them. But it was one of those so then it got spicy after that. And then if you do remember last season when we played them, a lot of people don't notice this, but Fewy kept his main guys in with like a minute to go.
I did not notice.
But he didn't. But Liggins didn't take his guys out, so Fewy kept his guys in. Like Chat, Drew, everybody was on the floor like 1 minute to go, and we were up 25. But he didn't take his guys out, so he just left his guys in. Spiciness is my point.
Sure, yeah.
So the Portland game is always interesting to me because you just kind of watch like, oh, is it gonna get a little bit feisty here?
Well, hopefully they lost the last couple of games by like humongous margins. Like they lost almost by 40 to St. Mary's.
Yikes.
So it could be over before half. And if that's the case, that probably won't happen. But,
I hope not. Yeah, no, I hope not.
But it sounds like kind of Bush League. So
yeah. And again, he's a good coach. I think what they run is good, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just giving the backstory on why the Portland game may be more interesting than it seems on paper.
I mean, I remember kind of marking this game back when they were playing really close to Michigan State and UNC. But yeah, it will be really interesting what team comes out. Yeah, Gonzaga always gets the best from other tems. So
you get the best shot from me. But you got those listener questions?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to ask you a personal question about WSU and Arizona. WSU like ended Arizona's streak, home winning streak, and they beat Arizona on the road. And like, did you watch the game? Did you see the highlights?
I saw the highlights, and obviously Tommy Lloyd is still friend of the program, still personal friends. Just tough loss. Kyle Smith's a good coach. Was at San Francisco before Todd Golden. I just, spent a whole episode why San Francisco was a tough place to play. It's trying to employ the same style down there. They play analytic driven. They shoot a lot of threes, kind of dribble drive motions. Could be tough to defend. So maybe they just caught Arizona kind of napping a little bit.
Yeah, no.
Like, if we're obviously in the Northwest in Spokane, so there's probably a lot of Zag fans that are Coop fans as well. So like, congrats to them to getting that marquee win. And sometimes that's good for a program like Arizona. You can reset yourself, and
for sure,
but yeah.
The other question I have is about Nolan Hickman. There's was talking to my brother about this over the weekend, and he has been hearing a lot of people talk about how Nolan Hickman shouldn't be starting. That kind of quieted things after Saturday's game. And I know your opinion on it, but it seems like he's hearing it. I've been seeing it other places too. Like there's rumbling. Like
who the fuck would start?
I don't know.
Besides him.
And that's and I'm just
that's what
I just wanted to like
my
say,
thoughts on it.
Your thoughts on that. I know what your thoughts on it. I think we all know what your thoughts are, but like I always think it's so weird when all these rumblings are happening. Like if you go on Twitter and you see like during game, like Nolan Hickman shouldn't be starting, like this person, like, and there's not many. I mean, it's Malachi and Hunter behind him.
Yeah,
I guess
and those are two not point guards.
Yeah, so like I don't know who says this, but I think it's just a weird thing for Gonzaga fans to be saying.
Yeah, I don't, like I said, like, you know, how many, let's think of the point guards in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Perkins, Jalen Suggs, Andrew Nembhard. Okay, really good. 2 pros. Perk went and played. He's playing somewhere, right? He's a professional basketball player. Okay, all-time assist leader, good player. So, like, all right, let's understand the lineage that's come through here. And then I haven't even talked about the guys before that. I could have a whole fucking episode, and we're at the end of it. So I need to get this point formulated before I go on too much. He's a sophomore. Basically like a freshman. He played fucking 8 minutes a game last year.
Yeah.
And it was one of those where like, hey, we need to play you so you don't transfer type of deal. So Andrew was playing literally like 38 minutes tonight, and then Rasheer was playing a ton as a backup. So like Nolan really didn't play that much that last year. Yeah. Like honestly, like it was kind of like, all right, you got to come in and go up and down for like 3 minutes. Good job. Okay. So if you look at his numbers at a young age or at a time period of where, like I just mentioned, and he's close to what Andrew was producing last year. And then also like the counter off, like, well, you know, Rasheer could start at the 1, and then you could have Malachi at the 2 or whatever, and then bring Nolan off the bench. Like, how would that serve this team any good? Like Rasheer is a scoring off guard.
Right.
He has the body of a point guard, but he's a 2 guard. That's what he likes to play. He's a scorer. He was a scorer at Iowa State. Then when he came here, you know, so like he can handle being the 1, but then you take away his ability to score. I mean, he just had 21 or whatever against San Francisco and knocked down big time shots. So again,
I think it comes after the Pepperdine game. He had 0 points in the Pepperdine game, and there was. And I honestly, I only want to say it just because if there's multiple people saying it, I just want to address it, and because I think you provide a lot of perspective, and you can help people understand. Like he's young, and he's
but again, look at his numbers. At one point, he was over 2-to-1 assist turnover ratio. So what the fuck else do you want? He shoots a decent percentage from 3. He's not terrible from the field overall. He flattens the defense. He pushes the ball. A game like Pepperdine, when you scored 111, like who cares if he scored 0? Who gives a fuck? I mean, it didn't matter.
Right, it didn't.
So like sometimes, especially at Gonzaga, you know, with the offense we run side ball screen, dribble handoff, dribble drive motion, you know, and then a lot of throwing it to fucking better throw it Drew. Like sometimes the game just doesn't come to these guys offensively. And it's not a knock on what we're running, but like sometimes it's not your night.
Yeah.
Just not. So I think Nolan's played great. And it's not me saying because I went to Gonzaga and I call the games. I'd tell you if I thought he was shitty. He's not shitty. He's really not. Could he be better in some areas? Absolutely. Yeah. But he's not worthy of not playing the minutes that he's playing at and the speed that he's playing at and the leash that he has. He's slowly gotten better. Start of the season was shaky turnover-wise. It was. Yeah. And now it's, like I said, he's climbed it all the way to 2-to-1 assist turnover ratio. That's what you want out of your point guard. Biggest stat I've always heard, or the biggest saying I've always heard, how do you judge point guards? What's the most important stat for a point guard? Wins. It's like quarterbacks. Yeah. Wins. Now, is it prevalent as much today? No, because that's an old saying from like 20 years ago. Now, I mean, you kind of got to look, okay, what does he shoot effective field goal percentage? What's his, you know, how does he read ball screens, blah, 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 all that stuff matters. I get it. I'm part of that mindset of basketball too, how you judge people.
Mhm.
But like, whoever thinks that, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you don't know. You don't know Gonzaga basketball. You don't know basketball kind of period. And so who do you put in? It's not like you have like a McDonald's All-American point guard on the bench waiting to come in.
Right.
He's been fine.
He's improved in every stat category pretty much. Like, he's gotten a little bit more turnovers. That's because he's playing more.
Yeah.
But he's doing great. And this is a kind of, I would say, like building him like his junior year. I mean, he's going to come in and be a stud. So
I totally agree. I mean, it's a slow burn process. Like I said, last year is kind of a wash for me. Obviously, he played, but he didn't play meaningful minutes at all, and he didn't play, minutes stacked on top of each other. So it's hard to get and then so the start of this year was kind of like his freshman year. Experience wise. So yeah, I mean, Nolan's been great. It's kind of cool that he had 20 and played well against Santa Clara and goes 8 for 9, hits big time shots to kind of, quiet that murmur up.
Absolutely.
I hope the kid doesn't feel that way. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I hope he stays off social media for that kind of stuff because he's played great.
Yeah.
And you just got to go out there and hoop. And thanks for all the sponsors. Thanks for coming on again. I like doing the rants. It's fun because I just get to talk the whole time.
It's great. I love hearing it.
You just get to say whatever I want, and I go into soapbox, and just kind of rant and rave. But big week coming up, like I said, for Gonzaga, BYU Portland. Again, keep listening. Thanks for listening to The Perimeter.
Let's do